Welcome to Fancounters. My name's Nick.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And this week you're going to hear part 2 of our interview with Suzanne Whang. As we've told you before, I knew about her from House Hunters, but as we found out last week on the show, she's got so much more to talk to us about.
Golly, she's an inspiration. She really is a cool woman.
Yeah. So we're going to continue the conversation this week. But before we dive right into that, I've got a little issue that I was going to ask Elizabeth advice on, and I'm going to let you, eavesdrop on our conversation.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So about a year ago, I've got this movie premise because, I've done feature films in the past, and
Yes.
I want to do at least one more. And I've got the premise all laid out. I've got the whole treatment written, so kind of scene by scene what's going to happen. But I haven't felt the urge to write the dialogue for it and put it into script form and get it really ready for filming. Couple reasons for that. Number one, it takes a lot of time.
Yes.
I'm just not sure I'm the right person to develop the lines and the dialogue and all this stuff for this film. The next reason is I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to film it because obviously with budgets and money and, so I don't want to take all this time writing it if it's not ever going to get made. So I actually found somebody through a friend that does writing, and she was going to write the script. And I was going to pay her, a sum of money or whatever to do it. And she never did. Things happened in her life. It got very complicated, right? So she finally resurfaced about a month ago, and she said, I'm really sorry. Her parents got divorced as one of the things. So I think I'm back on track where I want to write this script for you. And I'm a jerk. I haven't responded because I don't know what to tell her. It's not that I didn't respond because I don't want her to write it. I kind of do want her to write it, and it's not really about the fee that I was going to pay her. Mm-hmm. It's more about the fact that I still don't think I'm going to be able to film it, even though I really want to, because it's very compelling of a story, and I think it's very relevant to today's time. So do I have her write it and then try and do what I can to, get this thing made, or just tell her the truth and that I don't think that I'll be able to get it made, and why waste the money and the time?
Well, I would say if you can afford to have it written, you're going to be happier that it's written and ready to go at any time, because just as well as I do that some of these ideas and some of these scripts sit on shelves for years before they get made. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that next year or the year after that, you wouldn't be able to have it made. But now, if you wait, you got to wait for her to write it. This way you have all the time in the world.
That's true.
You let her write it. You do all the rewrites and you make it the way you want it to be and you get it all perfect. But I would be upfront with her and say, I'm not 100% sure that we're going to get this filmed, but I'm going to make every effort I can to get it filmed.
Yeah. It's one I want to film. But
yeah.
There's a lot of uncertainty in that whole arena because I've told you many times I've got that bully film, right?
Right.
We have been in development on that with my little team that I'm working with for over since the girls were born. So 6 years now. We've been trying to make this movie an overnight success. And we've got offers out to people. There's money supposedly on the table. I mean, I've heard everything with how all this goes. And I just don't want to go down that road if we're going to get hopes up of people. So I don't know.
But nothing's a sure thing.
Nothing is a sure thing. All right. So I'm going to let her write it.
I think so.
Okie doke.
We did a podcast when no one was listening.
That's true.
And now we have a bunch of listeners.
Now we have lots of listeners. You're right.
So you never know what's going to happen.
Okay. If you have anything to comment on this, you can email me at hello@fancounters.com. I'll take some advice from you. If you want to chime in, this is your chance. And as I mentioned weeks before, we're on Twitter, Fancounters Live. It's embarrassing. We need some more followers because everybody followed Facebook right away, and they think that's good enough. But
I don't understand Twitter. I don't know what that means.
Well, it's a way to update and talk with our fans.
Is that the one that vanishes?
That's Snapchat.
Oh, I don't understand that.
You better figure this stuff out. You got teenagers coming in your household.
No,
You do.
I know, but I'm saying no.
Yeah, well.
I don't understand something that you would put out there that vanishes. I use my Facebook page as a way to remember stuff because I won't remember that recipe later.
You have a lot to learn, Elizabeth, a lot to learn.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
All right, we're going to get into the show here. Thanks for being here, and enjoy part 2 with Suzanne Whang.
Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is Fancounters, the podcast.
You need to come to Hollywood. I'm going to make you famous.
There was this mob of people, and they're screaming my name.
Crazy fans.
Stop following me. Don't come around my house. If you do, the cops are going to be at yours.
I think this guy wants to fight me. Ended up being a fan.
And they pull out of their backpack dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures of my face and tell me to sign all of them.
Are you kidding me?
I continually will get stopped.
Can I take a picture? We're going to, oh my God.
I definitely declined signing body parts.
Oh, I don't want to go there.
I'm the only one that's ever spit on Sam Jackson and lived to tell about it.
That's why we call it Fancounters.
I don't think you're going to last on the air very long.
So the image on your iTunes podcast page, we talked about the podcast LoveStop. Should go check that out. But it comes from something called the Body Joy Project, and you allowed your own body to be used as a canvas for art. Hesitantly, I must admit.
Yes, completely hesitantly. So what happened was, after everything that I went through with my journey with cancer, I had left hip replacement surgery, I had back surgery on my T10 vertebra, and multiple left breast surgeries, which, the second one got complications from an infection. It opened up, and then part of it healed with scar tissue and part of it healed with extracellular matrix powder. So my left breast is scarred and has some partially regrown tissue, and it's asymmetrical. And what most people do when they've been through something like that is that they get plastic surgery or reconstructive surgery to get their left breast to be fixed or look quote unquote perfect again. Mm-hmm. And I really thought about it, and I decided, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. I think that I think my body looks really cool, and I can redefine what is beautiful and feminine and sexy for myself. It doesn't have to work for anyone else, but I can just embrace this as this is beautiful now, and this represents what I've been through and everything that I've learned, and it looks sort of cool. It's unique. It's my own unique body, and I don't think I want to take skin from another part of my body or take artificial silicone or whatever and stick that in my body. I've been through it. I've put my body through enough. I think I just am going to leave it alone. And so I decided to do that. And then I got approached by several people. One was a friend named Caroline White, who is a photographer, and she wanted to know if I would be willing to do just a topless photo shoot, because I have redefined what's feminine and beautiful and sexy for me. And I thought, wow, I would never have considered that before my journey with cancer. Not in a million years would I have considered doing anything like that.
Yeah.
I was never someone who was going to pose for Playboy or anything like that. But for this, I thought, wow, this could be a really amazing sort of socio-political statement that if I can do this and have this look on my face, like, you know what? I look beautiful like this. I'm okay with this. And I hope everyone can just be okay with however their body is, and redefine, and not subscribe to these media-forced images of what we're supposed to look like that changes all the time, by the way. Mm-hmm. Am I supposed to have a small butt or a big butt? Am I supposed to have, red lips or nude lips? Am I supposed to be thin or voluptuous, or what is it? Who can keep up? I just thought, I'm going to just step away from all that and just embrace the way I look. And so I decided to take her up on it, and I couldn't believe I was doing it. I was very nervous, and I wore pants because it was just going to be from the waist up. I wore pants, and then I put a sheer jacket on that I was hoping that I was just going to close up, and then over time maybe just be willing to let it open so that my arms would also be covered. Mm-hmm. Everything's going to be covered. As much is going to be covered as possible. And I ended up doing this topless photo shoot, and there was one particular image that I just loved. I just had this look on my face that I felt like, yeah, this is what I look like now, and I'm good with it, and you can be too. And I decided to take that photo, and I posted it on Facebook, and I got more responses to that than anything I've ever posted on Facebook. Thousands of people went crazy for it. They were just so happy that I posted that, because it made them feel better about, whatever their body looks like, and that they can just be beautiful by accepting it. And the photo got reported as pornography and taken down, and I was suspended from Facebook.
Oh,
until I removed.
Facebook police gotcha.
Yeah. And that just created even more of a firestorm of support for me from people like Wendy McClendon-Covey from the Goldbergs, and I think Liz Winstead, who was one of the head writers on The Daily Show. And anyway, so all the feminists sort of rallied for me, and they said, this is, outrageous. And so here's a crazy thing that happened. It turns out that it's just the nipples. I don't know if you know that. If I had just my nipples covered up, just the nipples, the whole rest of the breast can be seen just fine. It's only the nipples that are the problem. Did you know that?
Yes.
So if I put my fingers over each nipple, or a Band-Aid, a tiny little round Band-Aid over each nipple, it would have been totally fine. And male nipples are fine, but female nipples are not fine, which also is very strange.
It's very weird.
But I'm thinking, why is only the nipple, like only the small part in the middle, that's the dirty, filthy part of the breast? You could have double D, 44 double D breasts, but if you cover up the little nipples, then it's fine. It just makes no sense. Anyway, so a friend of mine who is a photographer who likes to do Photoshop, somebody had posted a meme. A man took a picture of his nipples and said, here are my nipples. Feel free to cut and paste these and put them over yours. These are male nipples. And then maybe it's okay, right?
Yeah.
So my photographer friend cut and pasted those male nipples, which were Caucasian, so they look sort of pinkish orange, unlike mine, which are sort of, brown. Anyway, pasted them over mine. I reposted the photo, and Facebook left it up.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's
crazy.
Ridiculous.
Completely absurd. It's also ridiculous to me that for swear words, like if you take the vowel and you replace the vowel with an asterisk,
a star. Mm-hmm.
If it's like F***CK, then that's fine. As if it's the pesky vowel in the middle that's still not the rest of it. It's just, I say free the nipples and the vowel.
There you go.
I don't know. Anyway, so I did that shoot, and then I did, I was approached about doing a nude black and white fine art photo shoot for an Italian art gallery exhibit entitled Women Who Have Survived Breast Cancer. And I thought, whoa, this is for an Italian art gallery, and it's black and white, and it's fine art. And it was a friend of mine named Dan Warner, and that was a whole other gradient to go from topless to nude. But then I ended up doing it. I was terrified. It ended up being one of the most incredible experiences because these photographs just turned out magical. In one of them, I have these fuzzy yellow balls that I got on a set that I was working on. There were these fuzzy yellow balls inside a bowl. It was just sort of a centerpiece. There were other colors of balls, but I said, can I have these two yellow ones? And I decided to put string in them and hang them, and I was going to dangle them from my rear view mirror until I found out that's illegal to dangle something that moves around on your rear view mirror because it's a visual obstacle.
Yeah.
But people have always said, Suzanne, you have such big balls, and my car says a yellow girl needs a yellow car, and I got it painted bright yellow, and I have chrome rims, and the license plate says Crasian, which is my word for a crazy Asian. And so my whole theme is I've got big balls, and these are my yellow balls. So in one of the shots for the nude photo shoot, I draped those two big yellow fuzzy balls in front of my crotch with, as if, look, I got big balls, and it covered up that area that I didn't want to show. Anyway, so that happened, and that was exhibited in Italy, and whoever was there read my story because I wanted to post my story that went along with the images and read it out loud in Italian, and apparently everyone who was at the art gallery opening, cried and applauded. So that happened. And then the final art project is the Body Joy project. So I have a friend named Tracy Newman who's a marvelous singer-songwriter. She was one of the founding members of the Groundlings, and she was a writer on Cheers, and she co-wrote the Emmy Award-winning episode of Ellen when Ellen came out of the closet. Anyway, she is now a singer-songwriter, and she's a dear friend of mine, and she's been there for me through the whole cancer journey. And her daughter, Charlotte Dean, is a writer, and she's also a feminist and a visual artist. She paints. And she came up with this thing called the Body Joy Project. And here's how it originated. Charlotte is a visual artist, so she paints, and she uses these non-toxic acrylic paints when she paints on canvas. And she always wondered what it would be like to put the paint on her hands and then paint her own body and use her body as the canvas. So she did this one day. She just put a huge roll of white paper, out on her hardwood floor, and she just started to paint herself. And she asked her best friend, Gabby, to come over and, photograph her doing this, not knowing, what was going to
happen. Yeah.
Yes. And so she had so much fun doing it, and it was so amazing that afterwards Gabby said, "Paint me now." So then Charlotte painted Gabby, and it turned into this wonderful celebration of the female body where we're using, women of every body type, shape, size, whatever, and using and celebrating the joy of being in that particular body by using it as a canvas and turning it into a work of art. So my body was a moving sculpture. It was the object of a photo shoot, and it was the canvas for painting. It was so amazing. It was an incredible experience. I was very reluctant to do it because so first you start with topless, then you go to nude, then you go to your nude, and someone you don't know very well is going to touch your nude body with paint.
Right.
Wow.
What did that paint feel like?
The paint was so cold, but it was still an amazing experience. I would have liked the whole experience better if the paint were warm, but if it were warm, it would start to dry and crackle. So they can't warm it up. But it was really cold. But when I first saw what she was doing, she turned me into sort of an abstract Jackson Pollock kind of. She would pour some paint on me. She would splatter me with paint. She would smear it on me. She would, you know what I mean? She would flick it on me. It was so incredible. The pictures, it wasn't just one thing, because all the photographs turned into sort of their own journey and work of art, because, it's ever changing. So the first pictures to the last pictures, the whole journey, it was ever changing. It was so much fun. And if you go to, I think it's Body Joy Project on Tumblr, you can see some of the images and read the interview that I did with Charlotte afterwards, where she wanted to ask me what the whole experience was like. One of the best parts was, after it was over, you go into her bathroom and take a shower, and the shower became this incredible lava lamp mixture of, colors swirling, splattering on the shower walls and swirling down the shower drain. And it was just, it took a long time to wash it all off, but I came out of there feeling sort of like a rebirth had happened. And this is the new, even more celebratory version of myself and loving my body. So it was cool. It was a magnificent experience.
Yeah, they're neat pictures.
Yeah, you worried about hating them, though, but your reaction was quite the opposite.
I was worried about hating them. But what happened was Gabby was taking pictures really early on, so she showed me some of the pictures as she was taking them, and I thought, wow, those look great. Okay, keep going. So
yeah,
I didn't have to wait until, you know how in the olden days you'd have to wait until the film printed. Yeah. So I love the pictures, and basically if the images can help anybody realize that, I hope that everyone embraces their body, their imperfections and asymmetries, and accepts themselves as being beautiful just the way they are. It would just help. It would help so much. The whole planet would be better off if people would stop trying to look like something else by, with whatever, with surgery, or just without surgery, just hating themselves. And, my boyfriend, Jeff, who I've been with for 3 years now, is an amazing singer-songwriter, actor, storyteller, and just a wonderful spirit. And, it's nerve-wracking every time I would date a new guy to let him see what the left breast looks like with the scar tissue and the regrown skin and the asymmetries. And when he saw it, here's what he said to me. He said, "Wow, that is so cool, and it's really beautiful. It reminds me of the Japanese art form, which I later found out is called kintsugi, where if a piece of pottery cracks and breaks, instead of fixing it, they etch the crack in gold to highlight the imperfection and celebrate it and decide that it looks even more beautiful and unique now." And he said, "That's what that looks like to me."
Wow.
And I mean, wow.
That was sweet, yeah. Let's just jump back to House Hunters for 2 questions, 2 quick ones.
Okay.
During the first 5 years of that show, the part that always bothered me was the fact that they never told the house prices, which is like one of the most interesting parts of the show is, what can my money buy me in, wherever? Do you know why they never, for those first 5 seasons, tell people how much those houses were?
I'm not positive, but I think it was because the house hunters themselves didn't feel comfortable with everybody knowing how much money they had basically to spend on a house. I mean, it's sort of like, when you go to a cocktail party and you're meeting somebody for the first time, you would never say to them, "Oh, what's your annual salary?"
Right.
Because they would really take offense to that, right? It's just not something that you ask. And so I think that might have been why at first, because maybe the house hunters didn't want them to reveal that. But I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, I think they started by giving sort of a general range, and then they started to get really specific. So it started with no information about price, and then it went to, the range, the sort of price range of the house, the houses, and then they started to go to the specifics. So I think that's the answer.
Okay.
Well, and I think that's funny because I have been watching House Hunters since it started. I didn't even remember that there weren't prices in the first one.
Oh, really?
when I read the question, I was like, I'm sorry, there weren't prices in the first one. I didn't even remember that.
That's so funny. Do you realize that I started hosting that show 20 years ago, and I did it for 10 years, and it's been on 10 more years just with voiceover without me. But there's so many people who say, I watch House Hunters, you don't host that show. And I say, well, not anymore, but I was the OG. I was the original of House Hunters.
So there's a couple fan stories that you have with fans of House Hunters. I was wondering if you could share those with us.
Sure. Yeah, I actually have a bunch. I do remember when House Hunters first started, it hadn't been on that long, and I was taking a cruise to Alaska, and I was standing in line to board the big ship, and somebody walked past me with their cell phone and sort of did a drive-by, snapped a picture, and then kept moving. And I was thinking, what just happened? So I stopped her, and I said, excuse me, did you just take a picture of me? And she said, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't want to bother you. I'm a huge fan of yours from House Hunters. And I said, well, what bothers me is that picture is probably going to be terrible. Right. So why don't you stop and let's take a good picture together? And she said, oh, really? Okay. So that was sort of funny. I was once at a Hollywood party, and this very hip-looking black guy wearing lots of bling and looking like he might be a rapper came up to me, and he said, are you Suzanne Whang? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, I love your show. And I said, you watch House Hunters? And he said, it's my favorite show. And I thought, wow. And that's when I realized how diverse our audience was.
Right.
I was actually really proud of the fact on the show that we had interracial couples and gay couples and single parents on the show, but we never pointed to it. We never said interracial Sheila and Mark are looking for a house, or gay Ron and Tom are looking for a house, or single and divorced Betty. We never pointed to it.
Right.
And if that did anything to increase tolerance for people, that makes me happy, because we all are the same. We all want to own a house, plant your flag and create your own sanctuary. And so we really had a diverse group of people that watched the show. And I understand the appeal of the show because it's part of the American dream to own a house. So everybody has that in common. But there's also this voyeuristic quality to it, all like a peeping Tom.
I was just going to say that.
We love that.
Right? Because we want to know, what does that house look like inside?
Yep.
I want to know what that looks like inside, right? And so people will drive by an open house sign who are not in the market to buy a house. They have no intention of buying the house. But what do? They pull over and they stroll in the house and they look around like, interesting, because they just want to see what it looks like inside. And so that's part of the appeal to it. I completely understand.
One of the funny things at our house is there's like pony bets. Like we'll watch the 3. And then everybody
they pick which one they're going to do.
Pick which one, and then you're like, oh, that's the wrong house.
That's hilarious. And do you know there was also a college drinking game that developed from House Hunters, where in college a bunch of people would watch House Hunters together, and every time anyone said the word nice, everyone had to take a shot. Because it got to the
Drunk by
point
the end of that show.
where the show producers were trying to encourage the realtor and the house hunters to come up with a different adjective other than nice.
Right.
Like, oh, this bedroom's nice, or this closet is nice, or this backyard is nice. And, that it just became this drinking game, which I thought was hilarious. Anyway, I also got the best email. A bunch of parents have sent me emails that their little toddlers were watching House Hunters, and I just thought, what are they in the market? Like, I just don't even understand why would toddlers watch House Hunters. And this one particular email from these parents, they said, our little Billy, he's a toddler, he just loves you, and he watches you on House Hunters. And so I emailed back and I said, that's really sweet, but I don't understand. Why would he watch House Hunters? Why would he possibly be interested in what's going on House Hunters? And these parents said, oh, he doesn't care what you're saying. He just loves you. He loves to look at you, and he loves the sound of your voice.
Yeah.
In fact, you should do children's audio books. And I thought, wow. So then they told me it was Billy's birthday coming up. So I mailed him an autographed picture of me saying, it said, hi, Billy, I hear you're my number one fan, thanks for watching House Hunters, love, Suzanne. Well, they apparently put it in a frame and wrapped it for his birthday. And then they sent me a picture, I think a week later, of pictures of him opening the gift and the look of utter joy on his face looking at the picture of me. And it just brought me to tears. I mean, and apparently also he can't say the name Suzanne.
Right.
So for whatever reason, he calls me Googadi. I don't even know how you get that from Suzanne. And he would always say Googadi on the TT instead of TV.
Yeah.
They were like, he says, oh, look, Googadi on the TT. Anyway, I just love that story.
That is super cute.
Well, I have to second that, because that voice of yours on House Hunter is incredibly soothing.
Well, people would say, I've had married couples come up to me and say, you're in bed with us every night.
Oh!
And I would say, what? Because they would watch it, I guess it was on at 11 o'clock, and they'd get into bed and watch House Hunters, and they would say, yep, you're with us in our bedroom every night. And I'd say, okay, well.
That's weird.
Am I good?
Oh, you're the best.
And I also got, through Facebook, I once got a private message from a woman named Sherry, and she said, hey, Suzanne, you have no idea who I am, but you saved my life. And I'm thinking, huh? How could I save her life when I never met her? And she said, 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and I went completely blind in both eyes. And I was in bed just feeling completely suicidal. And my teenage daughter would queue up House Hunters on the television in the bedroom. And even though I couldn't see you, I could hear your voice. And just like you guys were saying, she said, your voice was so soothing, and your voice made me so happy, and the show made me so happy that you got me through the worst time in my life, and I did not kill myself because of you.
That's cool.
And then she says, not only have I completely recovered from Crohn's disease, but I've regained the sight in both of my eyes, and I am now in my dream job, and I just thought you should know. That's what the Facebook message said.
That's cool.
Wow. And then there's another story. So do you know who Esther Hicks is? Have you ever heard of Abraham Hicks and the Law of Attraction?
No.
Okay. So Esther Hicks wrote a book called Ask and It Is Given, and it's about the law of attraction and quantum physics, and it's got 23 exercises that you can use to put the law of attraction into practical use in your life. And it's just it's how to manifest the things that you want in life.
Okay.
And so Esther Hicks is sort of I don't know, to me she's the biggest star ever, because I so respect what she does with her life. Right? She writes these books, and she gives seminars, and she travels the country talking about the law of attraction and helping people. And so I went to one of her seminars, and after the seminar, she was doing a book signing, and I already had her book, Ask and It Is Given. I had it. It was underlined and dog-eared and well-worn and highlighted. But she was doing a book signing, so I brought that book, and I stood in a long line waiting to get her to sign my book. I was so excited, the way some people would be if they got to meet, I don't know, George Clooney or something. I'm thinking, oh my God, it's Esther Hicks. I get to meet Esther Hicks. So I finally get up there and I hand her the book and I say, hi, Esther, my name is, and she looks up and she says, Suzanne Whang from House Hunters. I'm a huge fan of yours. And I said, what? And she says, I watch exactly 1 hour of television a day, and that's 2 episodes of House Hunters.
Oh.
And I said, you are kidding me. And so I just got to have this moment where, you know, how often do you get to have a moment where you go up to one of your heroes and they look at you and they say, oh, no, you're mine.
Oh, that's
I love
awesome.
You.
That's pretty rare.
So that was incredible. Yeah, it's pretty rare. Now, not all the stories are positive, though. I remember there was this party I went to in L.A., and this woman came up to me, and I'm going to change her name to protect her identity. But she comes up to me and she says, hey, you were on my show. And I said, I was? And she says, oh, no, what I mean is, I was on your show. And I said, oh. And she meant House Hunters. And she said her name, and we'll say her name was Kelly Berman. She goes, I'm Kelly Berman. I have a 12-year-old son. We live by a lake. Remember my episode?
Yeah,
and
right.
I said, no, I'm so sorry. I've shot hundreds of episodes, and as you know, I never get to meet the House Hunters.
Right.
And she says, I can't believe you don't remember me. Kelly Berman. I have a 12-year-old son. We live by a lake. Unbelievable. What's the matter with you? And I was so flabbergasted. She was screaming at me. I didn't know what to say. I had already apologized.
Right.
Yeah, there's no appropriate response to that.
You're like, lady, we've never met.
Right.
And
I was dumbfounded. And she followed me around the party all night long, glaring at me.
Oh, jeez.
And I realized that from now on, I should just say, yes, that was my favorite episode of all time.
Because I watch every single one of them.
I can't, Suzanne.
Right?
Suzanne, seriously, I can't imagine you're watching these things after they air every single
Of
one.
course. I don't watch any of them.
That's
I've
what
already
I thought.
shot the thing
That's what
on
I thought.
camera. I've done all the voiceovers.
Right.
And then I move on with my life.
Right.
I couldn't possibly remember. I mean, wow. Anyway,
That's
but
hilarious.
I didn't say it was my favorite episode because my parents taught me not to lie. So
Right.
it was a very awkward moment. There was
That
also
is
a time when I
crazy.
was growing out my bangs, and Elizabeth, you might understand this more than Nick might, but when you're growing out your bangs, there's an awkward
Very
phase
awkward
where
in the middle.
They're not bangs, but they're not long enough to
Be with the rest
sort
of
of
your hair.
blend.
Yeah.
So they were falling in my face, so I had to use, bobby pins and barrettes to sort of keep them away from my eyes. And it was just an awkward phase. And somebody posted on an HGTV bulletin board, Suzanne Whang could show a movie on her forehead. What? Wow, that's nice. That's really nice.
Holy
I didn't even have a
cow.
particularly large forehead, but I think it was because
You
of
could
the
now
way
see
I
it.
had to. It was just because of the way I had to do my hair.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought, okay, that's nice. That's some good karma going back to you. And I realized I don't have to police the universe because karma is a boomerang.
Sure.
I don't have to work. You know what? That person is just a miserable person. I don't need to go and find them. But I do remember probably the biggest thing that stood out for me that a fan of House Hunters said was I was at Burbank Airport, and the woman who was working at the airport who checks your driver's license and your boarding pass before you can go further. She takes my license and she looks at it, and then she looks up at me and she looks back down at it and she says, oh my God, are you Suzanne Whang from House Hunters? And I said, yes. And she says, I love your show. It's the best show on television. And I said, thank you. And she goes, yeah, my husband and I never miss it. And I said, thank you. So far so good.
Right.
And then she says, you look so much better on television.
Oh.
What?
Oh.
Hey, I look so much better on. What do I look like right now? Dog meat? I mean,
Yeah.
wow, what? And I'm thinking, are people crazy? Does she think I'm a hologram and I don't actually have feelings? Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, how is
And
that
I have
comment
this-
supposed to come off?
Yeah.
I mean, you look so much better on. How about don't say I look better on television? Don't say you look so much better in person than you do on television, as if I look bad on television.
right.
Don't talk about how I look. How about
Right.
just don't even.
Where's
what?
that? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all comment.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, are people crazy? crazy? And then I had this realization that I have a theory about why maybe people are crazy in this country.
Okay,
And I think
can't
it
wait
might
for this.
originate from the crazy nursery rhymes and lullabies and poems we teach our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you guys, but so let me just give you a few examples. So when I was a little girl, my mom and dad would tuck me into bed and they would say this prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep.
Yeah.
I pray the Lord my soul to keep. So far, so good, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
If I should die
Yep.
before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. What? I mean, what? I'm sorry. Night, night, little Susan. Good luck with that. I hope you don't die in your sleep, but if you do, oh well, it's been fun.
Well, yeah, and then don't let the bed bugs bite as they walk out the door.
Yeah, like night, night, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Bed bugs?
They wonder why all of us have insomnia.
And I'm thinking, what is happening? What, are we crazy? Why are we saying that? And then there's that song I remember when I was a kid. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony. Stuck. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni. What?
I don't even get
If
that.
a little boy sticks a feather in his cap in school, points to it, and calls it macaroni, they put him on the special bus. Is Yankee Doodle crazy? Is Yankee Doodle challenged mentally? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
I have a theory about some of this right now. Today is would have been Mr. Fred Rogers' 90th birthday. And I believe that there is an entire generation that are missing the whole Mr. Rogers message about being nice to one another, keeping your mouth shut about things that are not, and accepting of other people. I have a huge belief that my children are as cranky and as spoiled as they are because there was no Mr. Rogers. I'm a huge believer of it. Huge.
There's a reason that Mr. Rogers was on for so long. Mr. Rogers is helpful to adults. I do have a funny story about Mr. Rogers, though. I remember my dad said that when he first came to the United States, he was watching television, and he's flipping channels, and he finds Mr. Rogers, and he doesn't know that it's a children's show. He's like, why is this man taking off a shoe one at a time and counting them and talking really slowly? He just thought, this is a very strange country.
Yes.
And
he rode the special bus to work.
Yes.
Exactly. And then there's that song, Ring Around the Rosie, right? Ring around the Rosie, pocket full of posies. Everybody's in a circle holding hands.
Yep.
Ashes, ashes, we all fall down like it's a fun game. Do you guys know what that's about?
Yes.
Do you know
plague.
what it's about?
Black plague.
It's about the plague.
So Ring Around the Rosie, there was a red circular rash that would form on your body if you got black plague. Pocket full of posies is, you know how you would take herbs and stuff and crush them up and try to make these, potions to cure it, but it didn't work.
Right.
So ashes, ashes, we all fall down means that everybody dies.
Yeah, it's a horrible song, but it's super fun to play.
I'm so sad I taught my kids that.
Did you not know what that was?
No, I had no idea. I really didn't.
My God.
I know ashes,
What are we
ashes
gonna
sounded
do?
weird, but I didn't know what it's referring to.
Oh, yeah.
Ashes, ashes, we all fall down means everybody died. So I'm thinking, so should we do the Holocaust jig next? What is
Suzanne.
It doesn't, but I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
if everyone died from the Black Plague and we're going to make it a cutesy, fun children's song that sounds sing-songy and happy where everyone's in a circle. And then the last one, to me, the ultimate is Rockabye Baby. So, right?
Who puts their kid in a tree?
Rockabye baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. So far, so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all.
Boom.
Night, night, little Billy. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I don't understand. First of all, there's a cradle up in a tree, which, okay, we'll go with that, right? It's on the treetop. It's rocking. That's fine. Everything's fine. But then all of a sudden, the branch breaks, and the baby in the cradle plummets to the ground to its death, and that's the lullaby?
Right. Now go to sleep.
I don't understand. Yeah. I feel like if you're going to make that the lyric, then the music should match the lyric. So it should just be more like, boom, 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 a rockabye baby on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. And down will come that little bitty baby and all dead baby. Like that's how it should go.
There you go.
It shouldn't be like a beautiful sounding lullaby. Anyway, that's just, yeah.
Well, we can't
Those
forget
are my
about
House Hunters
the
stories for
children
you.
who are baked in the oven either. So
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of bad stuff out there. All right.
Yes, exactly.
we want to know about Dick Clark before we have to let you go.
Oh, yes, Dick Clark.
I was a huge Dick Clark fan. In fact, after his stroke, when he came back on the air for that New Year's Eve, like I was bawling. I was in tears. I was like, oh, look at this. He's so brave. And I mean, so tell me about Dick Clark.
You're going to love my story. You're going to love my story, Nick. Okay. Good. So when I was hosting that morning show, that Tom Bergeron was one of the in-studio hosts, right? First of all, Tom Bergeron and I have been friends for, I think, 30 years. We first met in Boston when he was hosting a talk show called People Are Talking, and I was an improv comedian with a troupe called the Angry Tuxedos. We met. We became friends in Boston. We've been friends since the 1980s. And then we lost touch, and then we found each other again when I booked the part as a host on Breakfast Time on FX and in New York City. It turns out he was the main host in the studio. We don't realize that we're working together until my first day in the studio, and we just scream and hug each other.
Oh, wow.
So I was so happy to get to work with Tom Bergeron. So on that show, Fox After Breakfast, which was on Fox, it was a morning show on every day, Tom had a female co-host, but when the female co-host was sick or on vacation, they would pull me off the road, and they would have me co-host the show in studio with him. So, you know, like Regis and Kathy Lee, it would be Tom Bergeron, and now today it would be Suzanne Whang, right? And so one of the times they did that was New Year's Eve. This was in the mid-1990s. No, it was probably 1996. Yeah.
Okay, yep.
And it was New Year's Eve, and Dick Clark was one of the guests in the studio. And I had never met Dick Clark, but, you know, he's a legend.
Absolutely.
So he comes into the studio. Tom and I interview him in the living room area of the studio, sitting on the living room couch, and we talked to him for about 10 minutes. And, you know, the three of us have a lovely rapport together, and it was a wonderful interview, and that was that. Nice to meet you, and goodbye, right? Cut to 1 year later, I have now moved from New York City to Los Angeles because I am hosting New Attitudes on Lifetime. And my hosting agent calls me and says, hey, Suzanne, I'm negotiating your offer. You've just been offered, you know, the role of being Dick Clark's co-host on Bloopers on NBC. And I say, what?
You didn't even know.
I mean, I haven't spoken to or seen Dick Clark in a year. And I met him for 10 minutes. I said, I don't understand. I didn't audition for this or have a meeting or anything. And my agent says, would you like me to insist on an audition, or would you just like the job? And I said, oh no, I want the job. I'm just sort of, you know, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
And so he finds out that NBC told Dick Clark that they didn't want him to have Ed McMahon as his co-host anymore. They wanted to sort of update it and have it be that he has a young, attractive, hip, funny female co-host for Bloopers, right? And he says to NBC, find that woman Suzanne Whang from Fox After Breakfast and offer it to her.
Wow.
What? I mean, wow. I mean, if that's not a testament to the kind of person that he is. So first of all, he used to do about 17 things a day, and I thought I was a productive, energetic person, but he would wake up in the morning and do so many things and then get on a helicopter and do something else and then come back and then produce this and host this and take that meeting and be on camera. You know, he was just an incredible person. But he remembered, it was indelibly etched in his brain, that 10-minute interview where, you know, I met him, and he filed it away in his mind, and he just conjured it back up, and he offered it to me. So I didn't have to do anything but show up for work. And, you know, I couldn't believe it. I had these out-of-body experiences sometimes on the set thinking, I'm standing next to Dick Clark. Yeah. American Bandstand, Dick Clark. New Year's Rockin' Eve, Dick Clark. And he's just treating me with open arms. He thinks I'm wonderful. He lets me ad-lib and improvise and make fun of him. He was old school, so we didn't use teleprompters. We would read cue cards over each other's shoulders. He was all about cue cards because that's what he was used to.
Oh, wow.
And he was a man of his word. He meant everything that he said. If he said it, he meant it, unlike some people in LA who say things and then never follow through. So one time he said, I'll have to have you over to the house so that I can show you around the house in Malibu, and then we'll go out to dinner. You, me, and Carrie Clark, his wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, actually, my parents are coming to visit me from Virginia next weekend. Is there any way that, they could join us? And he says, absolutely.
Ooh, wow.
And I got to tell my parents this, right?
You're going to dinner with Dick Clark.
Absolutely. That means that later that afternoon, he had somebody call me who knows his schedule to set the whole thing up. So it happened. That's my point about him. He has a reputation with some people as, being difficult. But what I realized about him is he doesn't suffer fools gladly, meaning he has 17 things to do today. So if he is around anyone who is late or incompetent or disrespectful, he just fires them because he can't have his day, avalanche like that. So I think that if people don't like him, it might be because they worked for him and he, wouldn't tolerate anything other than the highest level of performance to work for him. Anyway, so my parents got to come and we visited his house, and his wife, Carrie, always had so many dogs running, and I love dogs, but she was one of those people that, would collect stray dogs and just, provide a wonderful home for them. Dick Clark also, he loved to collect frogs, anything to do with frogs, not real ones. So he had different types of frogs everywhere. A standing frog that with, his hand out that you could put your coat on, frogs made out of all kinds of different things, images of frogs, paintings of frogs, sculptures, ceramic frogs. There were frogs everywhere. I thought that was fascinating. Another fascinating thing about him is that he got married on 7/7/77 to Carrie Clark. So every 7 years, they would have a huge party at their house in Malibu, including a huge tent set up, on the lawn in the compound, and have a fully catered and a full band or orchestra and ice sculptures, the whole thing. And I got to go to one of these that only happened every 7 years.
Right.
I mean, it was just breathtaking. And of course, you can imagine the kinds of people that were walking around his parties. And then when you go into his house, there's one hallway that's filled with just John Lennon's drawings of him and Yoko. I didn't even know John Lennon was a visual artist until I saw it was like a museum of John Lennon artwork. So now I have 2 John Lennon pieces in my house because now I know that he was an artist as well. But the best thing, 2 other things. Dick Clark's house used to have a secret, like a bookshelf in a den that if you pressed a button, it opened up and went into his wine cellar. I mean, who has secret, doors to rooms that, house your wine? It just felt like something out of a movie or a novel.
Right.
And that was great.
Wow.
And then the best part of his whole house for me is that he had one of his bathrooms designed to look like a public restroom with white tile and those, metal stalls and, the sink and everything is just, it looks like a public restroom. And he had all of his famous friends come over and sign the walls so it looks like graffiti.
Oh,
so,
neat.
Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder and Diana Ross and just, everybody is just Bruce Springsteen and everybody's just all over, has scribbled things. They've written things or signed their names on the wall to look like graffiti. And then there's a PA up in the ceiling, and on a loop, a woman's voice is saying, as if it's an airport restroom. On a loop, this woman is saying, Dick Clark, paging Dick Clark, please pick up a white courtesy phone. Paging Dick Clark, please pick up a white courtesy phone. And it's just running in a loop the whole time you're in the bathroom.
Wow.
I mean, come on.
That's weird.
So he, to me, is just an absolute joy. He was a complete joy to work with. He is a man of his word. He gave my parents, the thrill of their lives because, after the tour of his house, we got to go have dinner with him and Carrie, and I have nothing but fond memories of working with him.
Oh, that's so nice. I wonder what happened with the bathroom. Like, is that house still in his family?
I
or
have no idea. I don't know what's going on with any of it.
Like, that has to be taken down and put up in a museum somewhere so the people can experience it. Absolutely.
It's brilliant.
Wow.
It's brilliant.
I love being surprised at the unusual things our guests are doing. And most people don't know, and I didn't know until recently, that you're a minister and you love giving funny sermons.
Yes. So I became a metaphysical minister, a universal life minister, you know, how you can get ordained online to perform wedding ceremonies.
Yes.
But I also took a couple of years of science of mind classes, which if you don't know, it's sort of based on the law of attraction and metaphysics more than it is any religion. It's not Judaism, it's not Buddhism, it's not Christianity. It's sometimes called New Thought. It's sometimes called Science of Mind. It's not to be confused with Scientology.
Okay.
Very important to delineate that. And it's that's sort of in my blood in the same way that being funny is in my blood, because my paternal grandfather, my father's father, was a famous Korean minister named Hwang Chae-kyung. In Korea, you say the last name first. So Hwang Chae-kyung was his name, and he traveled all around the world preaching. And he was famous and controversial for using humor in his sermons. And some of the Korean congregation would say, no, church no funny. But he would say, only way get people stay awake every Sunday.
Yeah.
Right? So that was his philosophy. And I agree with him. And so he established a church, a Methodist church in Washington, D.C., and we used to go, you know, weekly as a family. Anyway, I'm more famous in the Korean community in the United States for being his granddaughter than for anything I've ever done, you know, on television or in movies, because that's how famous, you know, my grandfather was. He also used to do the Voice of America radio show. He was that's the Voice of America Radio Network. He hosted his own show. It's the official radio broadcasting network for the United States, and it's translated into, I think, 44 different languages in countries all over the world. And so he was a radio host as well. And he traveled to so many different countries. He was also a musician. He collected ancient musical instruments from all, I think, 60 different countries, and he learned how to play at least one song on every one of them. There were, you know, a pipe made out of a potato and a pipe organ, and you know, the musical saw he could play. I mean, it was incredible. He was an incredible guy. And so I also remember, you know, in Korean culture, using your middle finger isn't considered bad. But he didn't know that. So he would point to things or point up to the sky using his middle finger. We would go, no, Grandpa, don't do that.
Yeah, that means something different.
He would say, oh, you my genius granddaughter, number one in your class. And he would lift up his middle finger as number one in my class. And we would say, no, Grandpa, don't do that.
Yeah.
And also, I remember one time he... it was his birthday, and I was, I think, 8 years old, and I was learning to read and write the Korean alphabet. So I wanted to impress him. So I wrote him a birthday card in Korean, right? Happy birthday, grandfather. Mm-hmm. And in Korean, the word for grandfather is 할아버지. 할아버지. I mistakenly wrote 할아버지. So instead of budgie, I wrote boji. It was, you know, one vowel off.
Okay.
But, you know, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, he opens the card, and he spits out the section of orange he's eating, and he starts rolling on the floor laughing hysterically. He's convulsing with laughter, and I'm confused because the card wasn't
funny.
It was just heartfelt. And so then my parents run over and they pick up the card and they read it and they start laughing. And when they finally compose themselves, they come over to me and they explain to me that in Korean, boji means vagina. And so without realizing it, I had written happy birthday, grand vagina. That was the translation.
Oh, at least he got a kick out of it.
Isn't that what? Well, he did, because he had a good sense of humor. Yeah. Remember, he used humor in his sermons. He was just the greatest, and he also after he had retired from being a minister, they asked him to come back on the Voice of America network and be interviewed in sort of a lifetime retrospective of his ministry and his personal life. And so he came to Korea, and I think he was in his 70s, and he, you know, was sitting in a radio station at a conference room table, and there were all these Korean journalists and dignitaries and VIPs, you know, there to experience and to ask him questions. And this happened in Korea, and the whole interview was in Korean, so I'll translate for you because I listened to it in Korean, and my parents had to translate because I still am not fluent. But at the end of this long interview, so, he's holding court, and he's, charming and funny and wise, and at the end of the interview, they ask him, in Korean, Reverend Whang, what is the secret to eternal life? And he says, in Korean, here is the secret to eternal life. And then his head thumps on the face plants into the table. So you hear everybody burst into laughter because he's such a prankster. And then the laughter dies down and you just hear silence. And then you start hearing people are gasping. And then you hear omono, which means oh my God in Korean. He had an aneurysm and died right then and there on live radio.
My mouth is dropped.
What?
Wow.
So are you kidding me? Are you telling me that he died in the most hilarious, profound, and dramatic way possible on live radio? In answer to the question, what is the secret to eternal life? He says, here's the secret to eternal life. And he just goes,
dies.
I'm out of here. See ya. Bye.
Almost as if he had the right answer. And
yes.
Yeah.
And also, he lived by the motto, I guess, always leave him laughing. Because, he face planted and everybody, of course, they burst into laughter.
Yeah.
Of course, he wasn't dead. I mean, come on. So that's, every time I'm doing comedy or doing public speaking or giving a funny metaphysical sermon, I feel like I'm just channeling him, and he gave his sense of humor to my father, who passed it down to me, the entertainer, the spiritual person, the comedian, and yeah, so I really feel blessed that I come from such a magnificent family.
Wow, I feel like, with your life, it's like blessings and curses, and it's like you don't know how to feel about it, but so many great things have happened as well.
Well, I don't really feel like anything is a curse, to be honest. I feel like anything that happens in my life is either pleasurable or a great opportunity for me to learn something. And if it hadn't been for stage 4 breast cancer, I'm actually happier and healthier now than before I ever got breast cancer because of everything that I've learned about how to take care of myself, about nutrition, about my body. I meditate, I drink water, I have artistic creative outlets. I tell the truth when I'm not doing well. I've thrown my pride and ego out the window. I've just become a different person, and I'm better than ever before. And those lessons, I was obviously very stubborn in certain areas. I wouldn't ask for help. Mm-hmm. I would keep my traumas and crises and difficulties a secret. And, I was trying to present a perfect plastic facade that wasn't working for me or the people around me. So I feel like I'm living a much more authentic and incredible life. So I do not think of my experience with cancer as a curse. And I'm writing a book about it. I'm very excited. I'm about to finish my book proposal. And I'm, hoping that will reach a lot of people, because usually when people hear my story, they say, have you written a book? And I say, I'm in the process.
Right. Well, it would be a great story because it's inspirational as far as your journey, your change, the things that you've realized about yourself. It would be a good book.
Yes.
When you release it, you can come back on and tell us all about it.
I would love to.
That would be awesome. Now, you've got a couple projects coming out. One's on Netflix, A Weekend with the Family, and then there's a thriller with Taye Diggs, Till Death Do Us Part. Talk to us a little bit about those two projects.
So A Weekend with the Family is my first starring role in a movie. It's available on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, you can watch it anytime. It's basically like Meet the Parents if one of the families is black and the other family is half Korean, half black, and I play the Korean matriarch. So my daughter is marrying the son of the family. So it's I would be, who would I be in Meet the Parents? I would be Blythe Danner.
Oh, I love Blythe Danner. Yeah.
If you're doing the direct analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very much similar to my Sung Hee Park stand-up comedy character and my Polly character on Las Vegas, in that she is funny and irreverent, and there's a lot of culture clash between Korean culture and black culture. But it ultimately, what I love about it is that I don't know of any other romantic comedy that brings Korean culture and black culture together And at least in Los Angeles, there's been a lot of divisiveness between the Koreans and the blacks. And I'm so, so happy that there's something that, is heartwarming, that brings both cultures together to understand each other better and to realize that, love should be colorblind. And so there's a really poignant moment near the end that I, get to do. And it's just fun. It's fun. And I'm really happy that we made the film. So that's that.
Awesome.
And the other film, I don't think it's in theaters anymore, so I'm not sure how people see it, but it's a thriller called Till Death Do Us Part, starring Taye Diggs. I played an obstetrician. I delivered a baby in the movie, so that was the first. I've never delivered a baby on camera. And it's really timely with the whole Me Too movement because it addresses domestic violence. And at the end of the film, they put resources up about, where you can go for help if you are in a physically violent or abusive relationship and you're scared and you need help and you don't know where to turn. So I'm really proud of that too.
Well, I'm sure it will be on Redbox soon.
Probably.
Anything else you have coming up that you want to mention or promote?
I am writing my book, but also I have a passion that I've been doing for the past, I think, 6 or 7 years now, which is teaching and private coaching artists of any type. So for people who live in the Los Angeles area, I basically coach an ongoing workshop called The Playing Field, and it's for actors, writers, singers, dancers, comedians, hosts, public speakers, anyone who wants to do anything. You want to come and juggle, do magic tricks, anything that you want to do, whether you are advanced or a complete beginner. And my passion is to be sort of a midwife for people's creativity and create a safe, nurturing, fun environment and a judgment-free zone where people can come and explore and express and create and stretch and grow and learn in a completely safe sanctuary environment. Because it's the antidote to, I don't know if you've been in a class like this or heard about them, where it's usually acting classes where the teacher is really mean and cruel and verbally abusive and just sort of breaks the student down and then builds them back up.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't do their monologue well, they'll say, go home and split your wrists or something. And I just feel like it's done so much damage to the sensitive souls of artists to have teachers who have been abusive that some of them have left, the arts completely. And I feel like this is the antidote to that, because I am the opposite. I am going to provide nothing but nurturing and support and kindness for you to find your authentic way of expressing your soul in whatever way you choose. And that brings me so much joy. I also do one-on-one private coaching, which doesn't limit me to having to be in the same space, because I have clients all over the country who we use the joy of Skype or FaceTime or
Sure.
Google Hangout.
What
So
if
I
you
can
are
work
in the
with
LA
people.
area? Do you have a place that you do these one-on-one coaching sessions? Are you bringing people to your house or?
People come to my house for one-on-one, and the Playing Field is at the Secret Rose Theater in North Hollywood. It's every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And anyone who wants to come and audit once for free, just, shoot me an email, send it to Suzanne at SuzanneWhang.com. And I would be happy to have you come and check it out. So this is I think one of the reasons I was put on the planet is to be a catalyst and a nurturer of people's creativity, like a midwife. Or you just bring in the embers of something and I will help you fan the flames of it and turn it into something magnificent and bright that is just something that's personal to you and unique to you. And I just encourage people to be honest and brave and not to try to please me. I've been in classes where I feel like the students are trying to please the teacher. There's no need to please me. I'm already pleased. I have high self-esteem. I'm not a narcissist. I don't need you to stroke my ego. I feel great about myself. I'm pleased if you are doing something that you feel passionate about and do it the way that you want to do it. And it brings me so much joy. And what I tell my students is that the opposite of war is not peace, because the opposite of destruction is not stasis. The opposite of destruction is creation. So the opposite of war is actually art. It is my firm belief that if everyone is expressing themselves creatively, then they will each have inner peace. And if each individual has inner peace, that's how we get world peace. So I feel like I'm thinking globally but acting locally in teaching these creative workshops.
You are. That is awesome. And with all of your on-screen knowledge, and you've got a lot to share, and you're doing it, and you're giving it back to people who are asking for it, which is cool.
Yes, and I feel like it's so much fun to have the playing field, not just have actors. I have experience and background and training and knowledge, and I can help people in acting and writing and stand-up comedy and hosting, and even songwriting with lyrics and singing in a way that really expresses the lyrics instead of just singing technically beautifully. I'm sure that you've experienced someone sings technically well, but for some reason you don't feel anything. And there can be somebody else who isn't as technically good, but you're feeling
They're
their
emotionally
soul,
connected.
and you would go back to see them many times. So that's what interests me.
Suzanne, this has been a great couple of hours that we've gotten to spend with you, and we definitely appreciate your time. Where can we all find you on social media?
Oh, I'm on Facebook, Suzanne Whang, SUZANNEWHANG. I'm on Twitter at Suzanne Whang. I'm on Instagram at Suzanne Whang. I'm on LinkedIn, although I'm not on there very often. I think I have 5,000 friends on my personal Facebook page, but you can go to my fan page. And I have a website, SuzanneWhang.com.
Awesome. So cool to have you on the show. This has been awesome.
Nice to meet you, Nick.
Our thanks to Suzanne Whang for joining us over the last couple weeks. Her story was so good. We really had a hard time cutting things out, so we decided to just put that in a 2-part episode for you. So we hope you enjoyed the show. Join us again next week for a wonderful guest. Not going to tell you who it is. You got to tune in next Friday. But in the meantime, share our show with your friends. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio. You name it, we're probably there, and we'd love for you to invite your friends to listen as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.